Hey guys, tonight we step gently into a place lost to time. There is a door at the edge of the world, carved of oak so old that it no longer remembers the tree it came from. If you open it gently, you will not find noise or ghosts, but something quieter, the hush of time, the scent of stone warmed by candlelight, and the sound of forgotten footsteps echoing gently through empty halls. Tonight, let us open that door together. Step slowly inside this quiet place and follow the soft path of memory, where even the wind seems to whisper stories too gentle to wake you. Its stones are pale and rounded by time. Ivy trails like rivers down its walls, threading through window frames and archways. The oak wood is gray, smoothed by centuries of wind and rain, with carvings nearly erased by time's quiet hand. The air is cooler here, tinged with the scent of old stone and candle wax. The floor is uneven, smoothed by countless steps long since silenced. Somewhere above, the wind brushes gently against the roof tiles. You hear a soft creak, not unsettling, but familiar like the settling of an old house that remembers your presence. Somewhere deeper within, you sense a larger room, perhaps a chapel, perhaps a library. But tonight, there is no need to explore it all. The path unfolds slowly, just one quiet hallway at a time. Not to enter, but to remember. They say she was once a caretaker here, before the world forgot the Abbey. She never left. They whisper not in spirit, but in love. The flicker of the candle beside you reflects in your eyes, steady and warm. You can hear the soft ticking of something unseen, perhaps a clock long stopped, but still counting time in its own quiet way. Or perhaps it's your own heart, sensing to the rhythm of the place. Her presence is not cold, but quiet, like a hand resting on your shoulder when you're lost in thought. Each stone bears the polish of use, the quiet erosion of presence, and of light seen dancing in the cloisters, though no flame burns there now. None of it frightens those who know. These are not hauntings of fear, but of memory. Gentle hauntings. But it rests, it remembers, and it welcomes you. The light is low. The footsteps have slowed. Let yourself drift. The kind that keep you company, not the kind that ask to be banished. Dust floats in golden shafts where the candlelight touches air, and each mote moves like a memory unsure of where it's going. And there are stories here unfolding in the silence. It's cloaked in fog, with a well in the center, covered in moss and ringed with stones softened by rain. The first stars begin to pierce the dusk. Inside, the light remains golden, patient. You are no longer a guest, but a part of the silence. You imagine someone once drawing water here before dawn, the rope creaking, a candle flickering nearby. Those moments still live here, somehow, tucked into the walls and corners of the place. Arched ceilings overhead are faintly traced with faded frescoes, wings, halos, vines now softened into whispers of color. Some doors remain closed, their handles cool and still. Others hang ajar, revealing glimpses of empty chambers lit by dust and distant candlelight. Along the corridor, iron sconces hold stubby candles that burn with a quiet amber glow, flickering in rhythm with the occasional gust of air that wanders down the hall like an invisible guest. The light does not fully banish the shadows, but it does not try to. Here, shadows are welcome, folding gently into the corners, pooling beneath benches, resting atop worn flagstones. A faint iron ring remains for pulling, rusted but intact. You reach for it slowly, and the moment your hand touches the cold metal, something stills. The air hushes, as though holding a breath. Then the door yields not with a jolt, but with a whisper, and opens to darkness that feels more like twilight than night. In some places, the forest has tried to reclaim it, and yet the Abbey endures. Somewhere beyond the edge of remembered maps, where fog moves like thought, and trees whisper only to one another, lies an abbey draped in silence. Hidden deep within a forest that forgets the sound of roads, this place has rested beneath centuries of moss, leaves, and gentle rain. Birds quiet their songs as though they sense you nearing something sacred. The breeze becomes gentler, as if afraid to disturb the slumber of something old and kind. The sunlight dims in patches, caught in thick leaves, leaving golden patterns scattered across the forest floor like old parchment maps. You step carefully now, the path narrowing into a worn line of ancient stones nearly swallowed by moss and ferns. Its stone walls rise quietly from the earth, softened by age and kissed by climbing vines. It does not announce itself, but instead waits unmoving, untouched, forgotten, yet somehow never truly alone. As you walk beneath the green archways of the woods, the world around you begins to shift. And then, as if appearing through a soft dream, the Abbey reveals itself, neither grand nor imposing, but familiar, like a memory stirred from long ago. Before you stands the door tall and weathered, framed by two yew trees that have outlived empires. Inside, the world softens. The corridor stretches ahead with the gentle curve of a forgotten thought. You walk slowly. There is no reason to hurry. The Abbey exists in its own rhythm, outside of clocks and calendars. From one of the windows, tall and narrow, you see the courtyard. The air carries hints of forgotten seasons' dried lavender, old incense, the smoke of winter fires long extinguished. You pause to rest your hand on the windowsill, worn smooth, warm from the day's last light. They say that on some nights, a figure draped in shadow glides softly down this very corridor, pausing before the chapel door. There are tales, too, of bells that ring without hands, of chants heard faintly at dawn when the mist is thickest. You sit now, on a bench carved into the wall, and let your breathing slow. The Abbey does not sleep. Outside, the sky grows deeper in color, like velvet soaked in ink. Let us stay here a little longer, just until the candle shortens, just until the wind forgets your name, and you begin to forget the weight of your day. The door is open. The hallway stretches ahead like a ribbon of stone, winding softly through the hush of the Abbey. The air is cool and motionless, like the breath held between dreams. Your footsteps fall gently onto the worn flagstones, each one echoing just enough to be noticed, never enough to disturb. The Abbey absorbs sound like a sponge, holding it in the quiet curve of its memory. The walls, built of pale limestone blocks, rise with quiet certainty on either side. Their surfaces are gently worn some smooth from centuries of touch, others still holding the faint grit of age. Ivy presses against the outer stones, curling in through the edges of high windows, where colored glass catches what little light drifts in from the fog outside. You slow your pace, letting your fingertips brush against the walls. The texture is uneven, but comforting, like the skin of a tree long weathered by sun and wind. Every stone feels as though it remembers something prayers whispered, candlelight flickering, cloaked figures passing in silent procession. Ahead, a narrow window breaks the wall's rhythm. You pause, looking through the old glass. Outside, the forest sleeps under a veil of mist. Trees blur into one another, their forms softened as if sketched in charcoal. Branches sway slowly, bending to a breeze you cannot hear. The light is muted, almost silver, the kind of light that makes time feel distant. The corridor leads you downward by a gentle slope. The stone beneath your feet shifts slightly, each step a little lower than the last, leading you deeper into the Abbey's heart. Arches overhead form a modest vaulted ceiling, the stones joined in a pattern that once bore the weight of centuries of prayers. Here, the floor has changed. You notice shallow grooves, curved by repetition, where footsteps once gathered and turned. The wear of time is soft, like the smoothing of river stones. Your own steps fall into place without thought, as if you are retracing the paths of those who once walked here, without ever knowing their names. A faint sound stirs behind you, dry leaves brushing against stone. You pause. The corridor holds still. Perhaps the wind slipped through a window, or perhaps the Abbey stirred in its sleep. You move on. The light grows dimmer. Not dark, but gentle, like dusk pressed into stone. A few candles still burn in old sconces flames, steady and small. Their scent is faint, beeswax mingled with age. The shadows they cast are soft-edged, shifting slowly with your movements. You come to a short stair, 3 steps, wide and worn. They carry you down into a narrower corridor. The air feels more intimate here, close but not heavy. The stone walls draw in gently, creating a sense of safety rather than confinement. On one side, an old wooden door leans slightly in its frame. Its surface is cracked and marked by timelines carved not by tools, but by years. You imagine it once led to a room filled with light and the sound of soft voices. Now it waits in silence, as though remembering too. A turn in the corridor opens into a small alcove. A round window near the ceiling lets in a filtered shaft of light. The air is still. Dust floats in the beam, moving like thoughts without language. In the center stands a stone bench. You sit, feeling the cool smoothness beneath you, the silence folding gently around your shoulders. You rest here, your hands relaxed, your breath slow. The only sounds are the shifting of dust and the faint creak of old wood somewhere far above. Then, for just a moment, you think you hear it again, a step, not yours, light, measured, and then nothing. You do not move. Whatever it was, it belongs here. Like the soft settling of night, or the creaking of a beam, it disturbs nothing. This is not a place of fear, but of memory deep and still. Your hand brushes the edge of the bench. Faint etchings remain, barely visible, perhaps initials or quiet marks left behind by hands that once rested here. The stone remembers them, just as it now begins to remember you. A breeze moves softly through the corridor. You feel it pass around your legs, trailing up along the walls and disappearing into the stillness. It carries the scent of old books, dried herbs, and something else, maybe the memory of a fire that once warmed a distant room. You rise again, slowly, carefully, as if waking from a soft dream. The corridor continues, guiding you forward without urgency. Outside another window, you glimpse the shadow of the bell tower rising into the sky, half lost in the fog. Its shape is softened by time and mist, standing like a silent guardian over the Abbey. Your footsteps resume, light as breath. They echo softly along the corridor, becoming part of the soundscape. The Abbey listens, but does not answer. That is its way. It receives without questioning, holds without clinging. Another turn brings you to a longer hallway, lined with arched doorways. Most are closed, though one stands slightly ajar. The space beyond is dark, the edges softened. You do not enter. Not yet. For now, the corridor is enough. The ground beneath your feet feels warmer here, perhaps warmed by the last of the day's sunlight seeping through old stones, or perhaps by memory. Every step you take is met with stillness, every breath with air that feels gently used, gently held. There is a presence here, not a person, not a ghost, but a feeling, as if the walls themselves know you are here and welcome it. The space embraces you not as a visitor, but as something familiar, returning after a long time away. Far behind you now, the great oak door remains open, but it feels far, as though it belongs to a world you've left behind. Ahead, the Abbey continues, not grandly, but patiently. A few more steps, a few more turns, and soon the scent of books and candle smoke will begin to mingle in the air. But for now, let the stone carry you. Let each footstep fall into rhythm with the quiet. Let your thoughts soften, trailing behind you like threads unspooled. You are not lost. You are merely drifting, slowly, through a place that remembers without speaking, that welcomes without question. Let the silence hold you. Let the walls guide you. Let the footsteps fade. At the end of the corridor, A door stands open, not wide, but just enough to offer an invitation. Its hinges have long forgotten the sound of urgency, creaking only slightly as you nudge it with your fingertips. What lies beyond is neither grand nor illuminated, yet the moment you enter, the air changes. It grows stiller, heavier with memory, and somehow warmer. This is a place where the quiet has settled so deeply that it breathes with you. The scent meets you first. It is a fragrance of old paper, dried ink, beeswax, and something more delicate, perhaps pressed flowers once left between pages. The air tastes of the past, but it is not musty. It is soft, like dust that has forgotten how to fall. Inside, the room unfolds slowly. Tall shelves rise like trees in a forgotten grove, their spines lined with books of every shade of brown and cream, their bindings cracked gently by time. No titles shout from the spines. Instead, faded letters curl along the edges like whispers traces of names long read and reread, now gently fading into silence. Light pours in from a high, narrow window, just enough to make the dust glow. It moves lazily in the air, illuminated motes drifting as if in no hurry to land. They spin in the golden beam suspended between one breath and the next. The shelves themselves groan faintly as you pass, not from stress, but from recognition, as though they feel the presence of someone who has come not to take, but to listen. The wooden planks beneath your feet are quieter here, cushioned by a fine layer of time. Your steps no longer echo. They are absorbed into the hush, part of the library's slow rhythm. To one side, a table rests beneath the window. It is circular, its wood aged to a silvery patina. A single candle sits atop it, nearly burned halfway, its wick leaning gently, its flame unwavering. Beside it, an old teapot and a single ceramic cup delicate, slightly chipped, rest on a tray. The tea inside is still warm, as though someone had poured it only moments before, though no one is here. You sit, not out of fatigue, but because the space invites you to linger. The chair welcomes you with no creak or complaint. The table feels balanced, familiar. When you touch the teacup, warmth radiates through the porcelain. The scent rises, a mix of lavender, thyme, and something you can't quite name. The steam curls upward slowly, dissipating into the quiet without urgency. All around, books stand at attention, though they lean slightly toward one another as if sharing secrets. Some are bound in soft leather, others wrapped in linen or parchment. A few have been tied shut with faded ribbon, perhaps containing thoughts meant to remain unread. None feel forgotten. All feel patiently waiting. You reach for one. The spine resists only a little, the book sliding from its place with the sound of cloth brushing stone. When you open it, the pages sigh. They are thick and yellowed, the ink faded but legible. The words do not demand to be read. They drift into your mind like the scent of a memory, familiar even if never known. There are no titles, only beginnings. Stories told in long, curling lines of script, some pages half empty, as if the writers had paused mid-thought and never returned. Others are filled edge to edge, words flowing like a river, uninterrupted by margins or punctuation. It does not matter whether you understand. The act of holding the book is enough. The library holds more than books. Along the back wall, a shelf displays objects, a quill still resting in an inkwell, the ink dried to a dark shell. A folded shawl, its fabric thin and delicate, embroidered with vines. A glass bottle, corked and clouded, perhaps once holding scent or medicine. Each item rests as if untouched for decades, and yet no dust has gathered, as if the air itself is too respectful to settle here. Above, the ceiling arches modestly, its beams darkened with age but uncracked. You imagine rain tapping softly on the tiles overhead, though tonight there is only silence. The warmth of the candle and the weight of the books surround you like a blanket. Even the shadows in the corners feel calm, settled into the shape of the room. You turn another page, though your eyes do not seek meaning. It is the sound that soothes the faint rasp of paper, the way the page curls, the way your hand lingers before letting go. The book rests easily in your lap. It does not ask anything of you. Somewhere in the shelves behind, you hear the soft click of something shifting. Not startling, not close. Just the sound of wood adjusting, of age settling in its place. Perhaps the building itself has shifted its weight ever so slightly, leaning back into rest. You close the book gently, returning it to its place. The shelf accepts it without sound. You rise from the chair, the warmth of the tea still lingering in your hands. Before you leave, you glance around once more. There is no movement, no breeze. And yet the room does not feel still. It feels alive in the way a dream feels alive. The edges soft, the sense of time stretched and slow. You walk once more between the shelves, your fingers trailing lightly along the bindings. Some are smooth, others cracked like riverbeds. Each holds a voice too quiet to speak aloud. Each carries a weight, not of burden, but of presence. You pass a ladder leaning against one of the taller shelves, its rungs polished smooth. No footprints in the dust. No sign of recent use. And still, you sense that someone has been here. Perhaps not today. Perhaps not even this year. But not forgotten. Not erased. At the far end of the room, an arched doorway leads into another chamber. You do not go through yet. You pause instead at the threshold, breathing in the scent of wax and paper one last time. The library does not ask you to remember it. It simply welcomes your quiet. It does not tell stories. It listens to them. The very walls feel tuned to stillness, as if built from silence itself. You leave the library behind, stepping back into the hush of stone and shadow. The corridor narrows here, drawing inward like a soft breath held in stillness. Your steps make no echo now. The walls, lined with centuries of silence, seem to pull the sound into themselves, wrapping it gently away. Ahead, a door stands ajar, weathered, pale, with a handle dulled by time. You press your palm against it, and it opens without resistance. What greets you is not darkness, but the pale hush of mist-filtered light. A tall, frosted window takes up most of the far wall. Light pours through it, soft and silver, washing over the stone floor like moonlight on water. Patterns of condensation blur the glass, and drops slide down slowly, tracing quiet paths. Beyond the window, trees fade into a white fog of no color, no motion, only outlines and suggestions. Beneath the window sits a low table. Its surface, smooth with age, holds a teapot, 2 porcelain cups, and a simple folded cloth. Steam curls from the spout, rising into the cool air like a gentle breath. You draw closer, and the scent of the tea greets you. Lavender, perhaps rosemary, and a hint of something sweet-dried orange peel or honey. You kneel on a cushion by the table. Its fabric is easily beneath your weight, as though long used by visitors who never stayed long, but always came quietly. You lift the teapot. It is warm, not hot just enough to comfort your hands. The tea flows in a thin, steady stream into the cup, its color a soft amber, its sound barely more than a whisper. The first sip is enough to fill your chest with warmth. It spreads slowly, not in a rush, but like sunlight through curtains. You hold the cup in both hands, resting your elbows on your knees. Outside, a single crow calls from the trees, a distant sound, softened by the fog. There is no other movement in the room. The air is still, save for the slow drift of steam and the faint creak of old wood somewhere above. You breathe deeply, letting your shoulders drop. The window glows, though the sun is nowhere in sight. The light is patient. You imagine it has always been like this daylight, without a beginning, fog without direction. On the table, the second cup remains untouched. The space beside you is empty, but not lonely. The place feels set for memory more than company. The extra cup might have been poured long ago, or maybe not at all. Its presence is enough. You run a finger along the rim of your cup, feeling the smoothness, the faint warmth. The scent has deepened as the tea cools a little stronger now, more grounding. You sip again, slower this time, your eyes resting on the frosted patterns in the window. They resemble ferns, feathers, veins of ice caught mid-bloom. A low shelf beside the table holds a stack of folded cloths, each carefully embroidered with old thread. You reach for one, the topmost, faded blue, and lay it across your lap. The cloth is soft, the stitching uneven in places. Not perfect, but made by hand, made to last. Somewhere in the Abbey, a draft moves through a hidden hallway. You hear the distant creak of beams settling, the sigh of wood long used to waiting. The tea in your cup ripples slightly. Not a chill, just a reminder that the Abbey breathes. You look back to the table. A single candle burns near the edge, its flame steady. The wax has begun to pool. Its light is golden, warmer than the daylight, casting long shadows that stretch across the stone. It flickers once, then calms again. Time passes slowly here, as if bound to the rhythm of breath and steam. The rune asks nothing of you. It only offers its presence. There is no need to think, no need to do. You are simply here, and that is enough. The tea is half gone. You drink another small sip, letting it rest on your tongue. The flavors are more muted now, but comforting like a song remembered, though the words are long gone. Outside, the mist thickens, then thins again, moving in waves. The bell tower is now just visible in the distance, its form softened, hovering above the trees like a memory. You watch, not waiting for anything to change, just watching as the world fades further into stillness. You place your cup down on the tray. The porcelain clicks gently against the wood. It is not empty, but you have had enough. The warmth inside you remains. Your fingers rest on the folded cloth in your lap, tracing the threads without thinking. The texture grounds you. You rise slowly. The cushion breathes beneath you as you stand. You fold the cloth carefully and place it back with the others. Nothing in the room has changed. Yet it feels as though something has settled some part of you that had been restless, is now quiet. You turn once more to the window. Frost still clings to the edges. The outside world remains hushed. No footstep, no breeze, no sound beyond what the Abbey chooses to let in. And the Abbey, tonight, prefers quiet. You walk to the door. Your hand rests on the handle, cool to the touch. You glance back at the table. The second cup remains untouched. The candle still burns. The room waits, without expectation, for the next quiet soul. You step out and close the door behind you. The latch falls softly into place. The corridor welcomes you again with silence, as if holding your memory in its walls. Your breath is slow now, your body light. The warmth of the tea lingers in your chest. The scent of lavender clings faintly to your sleeves. The hall greets you again, like an old shawl wrapped around your shoulders. The quiet follows you like a friend. Your steps begin once more, and ahead, another turn, another shadowed corner, another chapter of hush and light. You walk on, deeper into the Abbey's embrace, with soft footsteps and a slower heart. You leave the tea room with a calm that follows like a shawl around your shoulders. The door closes behind you without a sound, and the corridor before you stretches quietly, wrapped in the kind of light that has no clear source. It glows faintly golden in some places, silver in others, bending along the curves of the stone like a ribbon through water. This hallway, longer than the ones before, hums with memory. Not noise, not voices, but the echo of footsteps that once walked its length, again and again, over years now folded away in dust. You hear none of them, yet you feel them all. The stones underfoot are smooth from time, warmed slightly by your passage. The stained glass windows lining the corridor are tall and narrow, spaced far apart. Each holds a different hue: amber, rose, indigo, green. The light they cast is like spilled watercolor, pooling across the floor and onto the walls in soft, shifting shapes. As you walk through them, your shadow passes gently from one shade to another, like a quiet traveler crossing a forgotten sea. The air is cooler here, yet not cold. It brushes against your skin like silk held too long near candlelight. There is a scent of moss and wax, old wood, and something faintly metallic, perhaps the memory of bells. The corridor is lined with carved arches above, each holding motifs of leaves, stars, and clouds, as if the ceiling had tried to capture the sky. You walk slowly, not because you must, but because the place invites you to linger. Your pace matches the silence. One foot, then the next. The softest whisper of fabric against stone. The hush is not empty. It is full, thick with the presence of time long spent and gently preserved. A small alcove appears on your right, cradling a wooden bench smoothed by use. You pause there, not to sit, but to look. Above the bench is a faded tapestry, its edges frayed, its threads softened into haze. The scene it shows is pastoral figures walking in a field under a low sun. Their faces are indistinct, but peaceful. Their steps mirror your own. The walls further along are hung with narrow frames. Inside each is not a painting, but pressed floral wild herbs and leaves, some browned with age, others holding faint color beneath glass. You pause before a cluster of lavender and thyme, their silhouettes delicate and dreamlike, as if preserved in the breath between day and sleep. You continue on, and the sound of your footfalls fades again. The corridor narrows slightly, and the light changes. One of the stained glass windows here shows only pale blue, almost white. It casts a misty glow that rests along the floor like fog. The air here is cooler still, and when you breathe, you can see the faintest wisp rise before you, barely visible, gone in seconds. A pair of stone urns rest in quiet corners ahead, filled not with flowers, but bundles of dried herbs tied with faded ribbon. Their fragrance is soft and herbal: sage, chamomile, a trace of mint. You run your fingers gently along the stone lip of one urn. It is cool, textured, and still. A place for offerings, perhaps, or simply for presence. Ahead, another bench rests beneath another window. This one is empty of fabric, but dust motes gather thickly in the corner, swirling slightly as if stirred by your presence. You do not brush them away. Instead, you pause, allowing the stillness to settle again. Somewhere in the distance, high in the Abbey's rafters, you hear a soft knock, a piece of wood shifting in its sleep. The sound is slow, almost intentional, but too far to disturb. It reminds you that the Abbey breathes, that it is not abandoned, that its silence is not hollow, but sacred. You walk again, slower still. Your hand brushes the stone wall lightly as you go. The texture is cool and grainy, but not harsh. You let your fingers trail along the mortar lines, following the rhythm carved by generations. Then comes a turn gentle, sweeping to the left. It leads into a wider space, though the corridor remains quiet. The walls here have niches, each one holding a simple object: a brass candlestick, a smooth river stone, a pressed leaf beneath glass. Each item has been placed with care, though none are labeled. You imagine they were left by different hands over many years. Offerings, perhaps, or memories made solid. You pass them one by one, and though you don't stop to examine each, you feel their presence. As though they are not just artifacts, but parts of stories, fragments of people who once walked here as you do now, softly, slowly, with reverence. A small stone shelf juts out beside a tall pillar. Upon it sits an old inkwell, dried and dust-covered, beside a feather quill that no longer writes. You wonder if anyone had once paused here to write a thought, a prayer, or a final line of poetry before carrying on. The shelf remains, waiting for another hand. The corridor begins to brighten just slightly. The last of the stained glass windows is clear, and through it you glimpse the fading sky blue melting into gray, tinged with the first hint of evening. The hour is slipping gently toward dusk, though time here moves like honey. You reach the end of the hall. A wide arch stands before you, leading into another space. A new room, perhaps, or a return to one you've already seen in another light. You do not rush to pass through it. Instead, you stand beneath the final window, letting its clear light fall over you. The quiet hum of the corridor is around you still, soft as breath, deep as memory. This has been a walk not through space, but through stillness, each step a pause, each shadow a presence. And now, with the hush behind you, you step forward once more, carrying the memory of the corridor like a gently folded letter pressed to your chest. You pass beneath the stone arch, leaving behind the corridor that hummed like memory. The light changes again, this time not colored or bright, but subdued, like the hush that settles over a room just before the rain begins. The air is cooler now, the stone walls touched with moisture. Somewhere above, the sound of rain begins, not sudden but gradual, like breath being drawn across slate. The hallway here is narrower still, but opens soon into a chamber shaped like a lantern itself round, domed, with alcoves set into every curve. The floor is darker stone, smoothed not by feet, but by time and trickling water. Thin streams have left behind soft trails, glistening faintly beneath the shifting candlelight. A dozen candles flicker in shallow glass bowls, spaced evenly along the ledges. Their flames dance softly, bent now and then by hidden drafts that move like invisible footsteps. The light they cast is amber and gold, cooling at the base of the walls like warm mist, rising to touch the ceiling where old beams arc above, like the ribs of a forgotten bell. You pause near the center of the room. The rain has grown more insistent, now not loud, but steady. It patters gently on the roof above, tapping out no particular rhythm, yet comforting in its randomness. Each drop is like a finger on parchment, tracing stories in water. The scent here is deep and cool, rain, old stone, melted wax, and the faintest trace of dried petals. One bowl holds not a candle, but a bundle of herbs wrapped in linen lavender, marjoram, and lemon balm. Their fragrance is warmed by the nearby flames, drifting into the room in slow pulses. A chair sits in one alcove. Its cushion is faded rose velvet, worn smooth by countless hours of quiet rest. You lower yourself into it, the fabric sighing beneath your weight. The back of the chair curves gently, like it's made for leaning back into sleep. Around you, the candlelight ripples. Shadows stretch and shorten, never sharp, always soft. You close your eyes for a moment. With them shut, the sound of the rain deepens. You hear it not just above, but all around on stone, on glass, on distant shingles that you cannot see. It is a full sound, yet never overwhelming. A lullaby not sung, but simply allowed to happen. Opening your eyes, you notice a small shelf tucked behind one of the pillars. On it rests a bowl, half filled with smooth, dark stones. Each stone is worn, as if from a riverbed. Someone has placed a single candle in the center of the bowl. Its flame glows low, just a flicker above the lip of the stones, as if trying not to disturb them. The longer you sit, the more details emerge. Water trails along the corners of the ceiling, gathering into thin rivulets that trace old paths down the stone. They never drip loudly, just whisper along their way, like ink running across a page too slowly to read. Outside the nearest window, fog curls up from the base of the Abbey. The trees below are veiled again, their branches barely visible. Occasionally, a leaf clings to the glass, pressed flat by wind and moisture, then slides slowly down, leaving behind a glistening trail. You watch the candles. Some bend low, nearly out. Others flare briefly, then settle again. The room breathes with you, as though exhaling warmth each time you inhale peace. There is no urgency here. Even the rain agrees it falls steadily, but never hurries. You rise quietly and cross to another alcove. This one holds an old writing desk, its surface bare save for a closed book and a small brass key. The book is not labeled. You do not open it. Its presence is enough. The key rests atop the book, unmoving, untarnished by time. The sound of the rain shifts slightly. It begins to strike a different angle, perhaps as the wind moves. Now it hits the high windows with a softer sound, like distant whispers. You return to the center of the room, where a thick rug lies underfoot. The fibers are heavy and hand-woven, smelling faintly of cedar. A candle near your feet flickers hard once, then returns to calm. You watch the flame dance, hypnotic in its rhythm. It feels like it's keeping time with your breath-long inhale, slow exhale. The light grows brighter, or perhaps your eyes have simply adjusted to the dimness. Either way, the room feels smaller now, not cramped, but close, like being held in a memory. The ceiling above darkens slightly as clouds shift. You glimpse the faint trace of stars through the tallest window. Not many, just one or two, blinking through the haze. Their light is distant, but still reaches here, brushing the edge of the rafters like a silent benediction. A low cupboard near the wall sits half open. Inside are small bundles tied with faded ribbon-dried sprigs of rosemary, small folded papers, and beeswax. Each is tucked carefully away, like keepsakes meant not for display, but remembrance. You close the door softly. Everything here seems made for quiet rituals. You sit again, this time near a low table. A bowl of dried rose hips and fennel sits in the center, and beside it, a single page of parchment, blank but for the watermark of time. You do not need to write. You are already part of the room's memory now. The sound of the rain begins to slow. Not stop, but soften, as though the clouds themselves are growing tired. The wind quiets, and the fog beyond the glass begins to settle lower, sinking toward the forest floor like a heavy dream returning to the earth. The candle closest to you has burned low now. Its flame leans inward, like a figure bowing in prayer. You stay a little longer, letting the sound of rain drift farther away, the scent of herbs soften in the air, and the last flickers of light slow their dance. The lantern room does not ask for departure. Like the rest of the Abbey, it only waits quiet, steady, timeless. And when you finally rise, the rain begins again, soft as ever. You leave the lantern-lit room, the scent of dried herbs and candle wax trailing faintly behind you like a final exhale. The stone hallway that greets you is quieter than before, if such a thing is possible, its silence dense and whole, like fabric too thick to fold. The rain continues outside, but here it sounds more distant, filtered by stone and time. Your steps are soft, muffled against the ancient flagstones. The corridor rises slightly now, guiding you gently upward. The walls begin to narrow, and the ceiling lowers with each step, until you realize that you're climbing a spiral path. The incline is not steep, more like a winding wreath than a stair. Small arched windows line the wall at spaced intervals, each letting in a whisper of gray light and the cool perfume of the mist dot. As you ascend, the air changes. It grows thinner. Not unpleasantly so, but touched with something clearer. The scent of old wood deepens, mixed now with traces of iron and lichen. You are approaching something that remembers the sky. The staircase ends not in a grand space, but a narrow chamber tall and slender, like the inside of a hollow tower. You step inside slowly. There is no need for haste here. The room is made entirely of stone, with thick wooden beams supporting the ceiling above. Hanging from a great iron brace is a bell. The bell is vast and unmoving, dark with age, its surface patined with centuries of quiet. It is suspended above the floor by iron supports, its mouth turned gently downward as if in sleep. No rope hangs from it. No clapper swings inside. The silence of the bell is complete. You do not need it to ring. Its presence is enough. The floor. Beneath it is worn in a perfect circle, smoothed by long-ago footsteps. Dust gathers lightly in the corners of the room, disturbed only by faint drafts curling up from below. Cobwebs shimmer in the corners of the beams, trembling slightly in the air stirred by your breath. You step closer to the bell. Its surface is covered in faded etching symbols too old to read, some floral, some geometric, some like fragments of lost constellations. You trail your fingers near them, not quite touching, feeling the quiet hum that lives in old metal and memory. Above, a narrow window lets in a sliver of gray light. The view is nothing but fog and a distant silhouette of the forest's edge. Somewhere beneath that mist lies the Abbey you have just walked through. Its halls now behind you, like pages gently closed. There are no chairs here, no table, only the bell, the air, and you. You stand quietly beside the ancient bronze form. In its silence, you imagine sounds that once were dawn chimes, marking the start of morning prayers. Dusk tolls guiding footsteps home. You do not hear them with your ears, but in the soft pull beneath your chest, in the way your spine straightens slightly, your hands still themselves. This tower is not empty. It is full of echoes too subtle to be named. A small wooden bench is set near the wall, barely wide enough to sit. Its presence surprises you, though you had not noticed it before. You settle there gently. From this low vantage, the bell seems even more magnificent, not as something meant to summon, but to hold stillness in place. A long rope must have once been tied to the mechanism above. You glance upward, following the iron loop and rusted pulley, but the rope is gone. Time has taken what was never meant to last. And in its absence, the quiet has deepened, not diminished. Your fingers rest in your lap, open and still. The air moves slowly through the room. A bird calls faintly from the woods below, its cry carried by wind and chance. It does not reach you as sound, but as feeling brief, tender, passing dot. You remain in this room longer than you planned, though you never meant to measure time here. The silence invites nothing and discourages nothing. It simply is. A presence. Beside you, as vast and gentle as the bell that no longer rings. You rise again, moving quietly toward the window. Its frame is worn, the stone around it dimpled with weather. You peer outside. The fog has begun to lift slightly. The tops of trees are visible now, though still blurred by mist. Light touches the edge of the forest, pale, muted, soft as breath. In the far distance, you glimpse a faint figure. It may be a tree or a statue or something else altogether. You do not stare. You acknowledge it with your eyes and allow it to fade again into the folds of the landscape, as everything here does. Eventually, returning to the center of the room, you let your fingers brush the bell one last time. The metal is cool and steady, unyielding but not cold. It feels alive in a way that stillness sometimes does. More presence than object, more memory than metal. Then, you notice something else, a small wooden box tucked into the corner of the tower wall, half hidden beneath a drape of dried ivy. It's carved with simple designs, worn by time. You crouch slowly, lifting the lid. Inside is a handful of parchment scrolls, wrapped tightly, and a single sprig of dried rosemary. You do not unroll them. You only look, and then gently close the box again. Some things are not meant to be read, only known. A soft breeze curls through the window now, bringing with it a thread of scent, something earthy, something rain-washed. The outside world feels close again, but no less quiet. You are suspended between now and then, present and memory. The bell stands still behind you. You do not turn for a last look, for the image is already pressed gently into your mind, like the impression of fingers against linen. You leave the bell room slowly, the hush following like a shadow. The stairs seem shorter on the way down, as though the silence has lengthened your stride. The Abbey welcomes you back without a word, without even a change in light. Somewhere far below, you hear the faint rustle of wind through high branches. The bell has not rung in centuries, perhaps, but somehow its voice still echoes, not in air, but in space, in stone, in silence. You carry its memory now, like a soft chime that lives only in the chest. It will not wake you. It will only linger soft and whole as you pass quietly down the stairs, back into the glow of candlelight. Descending once more into the body of the Abbey, the candlelight greets you like an old companion familiar, flickering, quiet in its welcome. The bell tower silence still hums gently in your chest, but now the world around you begins to soften again with the touch of warmth and amber glow. You walk down a corridor that bends in a gentle curve, its walls high and close, guiding you like the palm of a hand. The floor beneath your steps is smoother here, as though it has been polished by generations of soft soles and quiet movements. The stone feels warmer beneath your feet, as though it remembers the many who have walked before you. Soon the corridor opens into a wide gallery, not grand or ornate, but elongated and quiet, lined with tall arched windows and lit by small sconces at regular intervals. The air carries the faint scent of linseed oil and aged wood, the kind of scent that only lingers. Where paintings hang and time settles gently on canvas. The walls here are home to portraits, dozens of them, maybe more. Each one is framed in carved wood, softened by age, and many slightly crooked in their hanging, as though they've shifted ever so slightly with the settling of stone or the passing of unseen feet. You pause before the first. A woman in soft robes, her face oval and serene, eyes half-lidded as if caught in a gentle daydream. She does not look at you directly. Instead, her gaze is set just off to the side, focused perhaps on a moment, remembered or imagined. Her hands rest in her lap, one holding a pressed flower between thumb and forefinger. The petals are faded even in paint, captured in perpetual stillness. Each painting holds a presence, not haunting, but quiet, not watching in judgment, but in memory. You walk slowly, passing portraits of figures whose names are long forgotten monks. In weathered habits, caretakers with kind eyes, poets with soft quills held mid-thought. None are posed stiffly. All seem relaxed, as if painted in conversation, or during the in-between moments of life. Some backgrounds are richly detailed, shelves of old books, leaded glass windows, stone fireplaces. Others are abstract, mere washes of golden light or fields of faded gray. The lack of labels is never jarring. You do not feel the need to know their names. The unspoken familiarity is enough. The more you walk, the more the eyes of the paintings seem to follow not sharply, but gently. Their attention is soft, like a memory being recalled rather than a stranger being observed. It is a comfort, a feeling of being seen in kindness, not scrutiny. One painting, slightly smaller than the rest, hangs between two windows where the light falls unevenly. It depicts a child holding a candle in both hands, the flame rendered so delicately you feel its glow even now. The child's expression is neither joy nor sorrow, but a kind of deep stillness, as if they too know this place and its quiet magic. The eyes look beyond the frame, across the gallery, toward something only they can see. You pause before a landscape, an unusual addition among the portraits. It shows the Abbey itself, viewed from a distant hill beneath a sky of endless twilight. The structure appears almost to float on the mist, its towers barely outlined. Small specks of gold paint, perhaps, meant to suggest candlelight, dot the windows like stars caught on earth. You stare for a long while, unsure if the painting was made in admiration or recollection or dream. A bench of carved wood sits along the far wall. You lower yourself onto it slowly, the surface smooth and just warm enough. From here, the gallery feels like a long, gentle wave, paintings flowing along the wall like memories spilled carefully into view. The candlelight catches on the corners of the frames, flickering slightly, never quite still. Across from you hangs a painting that seems newer than the rest. The frame is less worn, the canvas brighter. It shows a figure seated in the very bench. Where you now rest, no details are given, only the outline, the posture, the position of the hands. It's not signed, there is no inscription, but something about it feels familiar, as though the room itself has recorded your visit in pigment and light. The walls seem to breathe with you. The paintings do not whisper, yet they speak somehow in silence, in expression, in presence. You feel no need to move quickly. Here, time expands like parchment unrolling slowly across a desk. Even the air seems to pause between breaths, waiting. Outside the windows, the light is changing again. The gray has softened, touched now with faint lavender, a prelude to evening. Fog clings to the corners of the panes like silk. The glass blurs. The trees beyond, turning them into brushstrokes against the dimming sky. You rise and move toward a small niche in the wall, where a painting nearly blends into shadow. It depicts an old figure tending a fire, seated low to the hearth, there, face turned toward unseen flames. Though the subject is alone, there is no loneliness in the scene. Only warmth, only care. A forgotten moment remembered in oil and light. A nearby candle gutters briefly, its flame bending low before rising again. You watch the motion without urgency, letting your eyes soften. Even blinking feels unnecessary here. Every detail is quiet. Waiting, you rise once more and walk slowly along the length of the gallery, pausing now and then without thought. There is no rush, no destination beyond the next frame, the next pair of eyes that regard you not as visitor, but as part of the room itself. As you near the end of the gallery, the corridor narrows again, inviting you to continue onward. You turn once, looking back along the gentle line of portraits. For a moment, they seem to nod, not visibly, not literally, but in presence. An acknowledgement of your passing through, and your place in the stream of quiet they hold. You breathe in. Once more the scent of old varnish, dust, time. Then step into the next corridor, carrying with you not just the memory of faces, but the feeling of being gently remembered. And so, you leave the gallery, not empty, but held by the eyes that watched not to see, but to remember. As the corridor narrows, the candlelight dims, becoming softer still more, like the memory of light than light itself. You continue forward, your steps slow, almost floating, your breath matched to the rhythm of stillness. The air is cooler. Here, but not cold, just enough to deepen your awareness of each quiet inhale and exhale. It's the kind of space that feels like the moment between waking and dreaming, where time folds in on itself, and even thoughts move more slowly. The stone beneath your feet grows smoother again, worn by time into a gentle polish. The corridor begins to widen slowly ahead, not abruptly, but with a natural ease, like a breath being released. Before long, you reach a tall archway carved with symbols worn by centuries twining vines, tiny stars, and moons just beginning to wane. These carvings seem less like decorations and more like quiet blessings from those who once passed this way. Beyond the arch, a vast hall opens long, high-ceilinged, and bathed in amber light. The glow does not overwhelm. It hovers gently, suspended in the air, like soft thoughts caught mid-flight. Lanterns hang from iron hooks along the walls, dozens of them, each glowing with a subdued, steady flame. They are not uniform. Some are round, others square, and many imperfect hand-blown glass with tiny bubbles or slightly bent frames. No two are quite the same, yet together they form a quiet constellation, each one contributing its light to the warmth of the whole. The ceiling. Overhead curves in a high, timber-bird arch, like the inside of an ancient ship. The beams are dark with age, their grain barely visible in the dim light. The lanterns do not reach this far upward, and so the upper reaches of the hall remain cloaked in calm shadow. These shadows feel protective, like the folds of a deep winter. Cloak, you step further in. Your footfalls make almost no sound, as though the floor beneath you welcomes stillness more than motion. The lanterns seem to respond with a subtle flicker, acknowledging your presence in their quiet language of flame. The air is alive with memory. Not voices or echoes, but something subtler, an attentiveness. Each lantern seems to remember a moment. Some flicker gently, like they once heard a soft laugh. Others burn steadily, like an old thought held carefully and never spoken aloud. You imagine monks and caretakers walking here long ago, carrying lanterns much like these, their paths lit in the same soft gold. Benches line the sides of the hall smooth, and lo, warmed by time and the weight of peaceful souls. You take a seat on one, letting your shoulders rest fully for the first time in a while. Across from you, the lantern light dances in a glass casing, casting reflections that shimmer in soft waves, like ripples across quiet water. The walls, though stone, carry hints of color bronze, dusty rose, and honey gold tones that seem to have seeped in over centuries of lantern light. You reach out and touch the surface. It is cool beneath your fingertips, but there's a warmth just beneath, as though the stone has learned how to hold comfort. At the far end of the hall stands a cabinet. It is tall and narrow, its wooden doors slightly ajar. Inside rest rows of lanterns not yet lit. Some are dusty, others gleaming, their glass catching the faint light. They seem not forgotten, but simply resting, waiting for the right night to shine again. You wonder how long they've waited, and how many hands once held them in reverence. One lantern, higher than the others, hangs alone near the center of the ceiling. It is suspended by a long braided cord, its glass unusually clear. It glows with a deeper flame, as though it remembers something important. You imagine it was used for sacred moments, readings of ancient texts, or quiet vigils. When all else had gone still, you rise from the bench and begin to walk slowly down the length of the hall. The lanterns seem to shift ever so slightly as you pass, their light catching your outline, softening it. You are not a visitor here. You are simply one more part of the quiet. Near the middle of the hall, you come upon a small round table. It stands alone, carved from dark wood worn smooth at the edges. Atop it rests an unlit lantern, smaller than the others, but clearly once cherished. Its metal frame is etched with delicate leaf patterns, and there's a keyhole on one side, though no key is present. You don't touch it. Instead, you simply stand before it, imagining the soft glow it might one day carry again, and the story it would tell of nights gone quiet, and footsteps long remembered. To your left, a narrow alcove holds an arrangement of dried herbs, bundles of rosemary, thyme, and lavender tied with fraying ribbons. Their scent lingers gently in the air, blending with the wax and old wood. The aroma is comforting, like memory made tangible, like kindness that lingers long after being spoken. You continue slowly toward the far end of the hall. Along the way, you pass a section of the wall where the lanterns are arranged closer together. Their lights blend, forming a soft golden haze that seems to ripple with each breath you take. You pause here, just to feel the warmth. It is not heat, exactly, but presence. A calm recognition, as though the room sees you and nods, silently, in welcome. Finally, you return to the entry archway. Before leaving, you look back. The lanterns remain glowing quiet sentinels of time, keepers of the hush between stories. And dreams. The hall feels less like a place, and more like a memory made real. A soft moment suspended in time. And as you step once more into the stone corridor beyond, the light seems to stay with you, not in sight, but in feeling. It moves. With you, like the warmth of a gentle thought remembered in the hush of night. The corridor narrows again, folding softly around you like a sleeve of shadow and stone. The echoes of lantern light still cling to your steps, lingering as a quiet warmth within. Though the lantern hall is now behind you, its hush continues to gently, like a lullaby you can still hear, even after the last note has faded. As you walk, the air seems to change. It thickens not heavily, but in the way mist thickens around morning trees. There is a sense of something being remembered. Here, not a presence, but the memory of presence. Something soft, steady, and older than the walls themselves. Eventually, you arrive at a smaller chamber, tucked gently off the corridor, its door only half closed. You push it open with care, and it doesn't creak its size, like something relieved to be seen again. The room is round, with low ceilings and smooth stone walls, and at its center is a circular table, surrounded by high-backed wooden chairs. In the middle of the table rests a candle. It is not lit, but the scent of old wax and herbs still clings to the air. Around the room, alcoves are carved into the stone, each containing bundles of dried flowers, stacks of small journals, and wooden boxes tied with faded silk ribbon. These are the relics of quiet afternoons, of hours spent with stories, whispered rather than told. You take a seat in one of the chairs and close your eyes for a moment. The room feels as though it's waiting, but not impatiently, just quietly, like a page paused before it's turned, and then you begin to feel it, not a voice, not quite, but the shape of a story moving slowly around you. It doesn't come with urgency, but with rhythm, with breath, with warmth, like someone sitting beside you, clearing their throat before beginning, not to scare or to warn, but to soothe. This is where the Abbey's legends live, not in grand halls or thick books, but in rooms like this, wrapped in the breath between words, in the space between candle flickers, in the hush before the tea cools. One such tale rises now, gently unfolding in the quiet of the chamber. They say that once a guardian tended the abbey long after the last of its keepers had faded into stories. Not a monk, not a ghost, not a figure of fright, but something in between. A presence that swept the halls, tended the lanterns, straightened the books, and ensured the garden's moss grew evenly. No one saw them directly, of course, but they were known. Chairs would be found pulled neatly away from tables, books open to the right page, tea still faintly warm in cups that no one remembered brewing. Footsteps, soft as felt, trailing through corridors that had been silent for years. It was said that this gentle guardian had once been a librarian, or perhaps a scribe, or maybe only someone who had loved the stillness of stone and candlelight, more than the sound of bells. When they passed, the Abbey did not quite let them go. Or perhaps it was they who refused to leave. You do not feel any fear in this story. Only calm. Only a sense that kindness, too, can echo. Another legend is whispered through the very stone of this room, that on the coldest night of winter, when the frost etches stars on every window pane, the Abbey hums with a low vibration, like a breath, through a flute. No source is ever found. The sound comes from nowhere and everywhere. Some say it's the stones remembering the voices of those who once sang here. Others believe it is the wind, learning the shape of silence. Still others say it's the guardian walking once more, checking that each lantern's glass is clean, that each room still feels like home to anyone who might wander in. You sit back, letting these legends wash over you like warmth from a hearth. There is no need to question, no urge to interpret. These are not tales meant for logic. They are meant for this slow breathing, dim light, and the soft stillness of your own presence. Across the room, a small box sits slightly ajar. Inside are folded slips of paper, brittle at the edges. You don't reach for them, but you imagine. They hold fragments of stories. A girl who danced in the library when no one was looking. A monk who left rose petals on each windowsill for the wind to carry away. A candle that never went out, even when left beneath open sky. There's a story that the Abbey dreamed, once, just once. And in that dream, the stone steps softened into moss, and all the rooms were filled with gentle laughter, not loud or bursting. Just content. It was the only dream the Abbey ever had, and it dreams it still, in fragments, in drifting shadows, in the curve of a chair's back, in the smell of lavender kept too long in a pocket. You remain seated as these stories move through. The air, not spoken, not read, but exhaled. They belong to the walls now, and the walls are generous. From somewhere unseen, the faintest sound of wind stirs a single, long note, like breath blown across the top of a bottle. It moves through the chamber and out again, carrying with it the echo of something long remembered. The candle in the center of the table flutters slightly, though no flame lives atop it. Perhaps it remembers, too. The wick, charred and curled, rests in its own quiet peace. You rise slowly, your body light, your breath calm. The chamber does not ask anything of you. It only gives, and the stories remain hovering in the hush, ready to unfold again for the next listener who arrives in silence. As you step back into the corridor, the air shifts again, lighter now. Not brighter, but clearer, like mist that has begun to rise. The walls remember your presence, and the stone beneath your feet offers the faintest warmth. Like thanks, behind you, the legends settle once more into their places, tucked gently. Into breath, into stillness, into the folds of candlelit memory and ahead of you, the quiet path continues. The corridor opens like a breath released, widening as your steps carry you away from the chamber of legends. The hush of remembered stories follows behind, wrapping gently around your shoulders. You walk without urgency. The air has changed. Again, it's cooler now, tinged with the faint green of growing things and the soft crumble of old soil. Ahead, light sifts through an arched opening, dappled and golden, like a memory of sunlight filtered through leaves. You step through the arch and find yourself in the garden. It is not grand nor wild. It is simple, closed in by low stone walls that lean a little now, softened by age and moss. The air is fresh here, but not brisk. It carries the slow scent of earth and petals, touched by dew even though the sun has already begun its slow descent. A stone path winds ahead of you, its edges blurred by tufts of grass and clusters of tiny, wild violets. The path doesn't lead anywhere in particular. It curves lazily, like a thought that doesn't need an answer. You follow it, your feet making no sound, only the slightest impression in the damp ground beneath. To your left, a bench waits beneath. A pear tree, its branches twisted with age, its leaves barely stirring in the mild breeze. One or two golden pears rest gently on the ground, their skin mottled but perfect. You pause there for a while, letting your gaze drift. There are no fences, no gates, just the stone walls, and beyond them, the low hills rolling out like folded fabric, wrapped in mist at their edges. The garden seems to be dreaming. Small birds flit between bushes. Their feathers are muted soft grays, pale browns, a blue that looks like sky turned into a whisper. They do not sing exactly. They murmur. Their wings make a gentle rustle, like silk brushing silk. Farther along the path, a wooden trellis leans gracefully under the weight of climbing roses. The blooms are sleepy, their petals loose at the edges, nodding toward the earth as if drowsy from the late afternoon light. There's a sound of faint trickle, barely noticeable unless you're listening. You follow it, and the path reveals a tiny fountain, so old that moss clings to every crevice. Water spills lazily over its edge, no higher than your knee. A single lily pad floats in its bowl, and nearby a dragonfly hovers, its wings catching. The gold of the sun dot to sit here is to forget the shape of time. You find another bench, set in the curve of the garden's far wall. Its stone is smooth and cool beneath you, and as you sit, the long shadows of the day begin to stretch across the grass. But they are not dark. They are soft. They do not hide. They settle gently, like old cats curling in the warmth left by the sun dot in these shadows. Nothing stirs except memory. The garden has no voices. It keeps its stories in silence, in the way the ivy traces the curve of a broken statue, in the way the time grows between the cracks of the stone, in the curve of a rusted watering can leaning beside a forgotten flower. Someone once tended this place. That is clear. And perhaps they still do, in the slow way that forgotten places tend to themselves. Perhaps the wind trims the hedges now, and the rain waters the soil. Or perhaps the same presence that lights the lanterns in the Abbey now watches over this green place, too, making sure the shadows nap gently, and the flowers bloom without worry. As the light shifts further, the sky begins to turn the color of milk and slate, fading with such softness that it's hard to tell when day becomes evening. You feel your breath match the rhythm of the garden's slow, deep, rooted near your bench. A row of stone steps leads up to a small terrace. Climbing them takes little effort, and at the top, you find yourself at the edge of a low wall, overlooking the rest of the Abbey grounds. Below, rooftops glint in the waning light, and a field stretches out, dotted with trees like quiet sentinels. It all feels distant, like something remembered from a dream you once had and almost forgot. There is something comforting in the garden's quiet design, its lack of symmetry, its imperfections, its slow blooming. You find peace in its subtle disarray, in the way the paths meander rather than lead, in the way the wind doesn't rush, but hums. Somewhere, a bell does not ring. Instead, a gentle creak comes from an old gate, not from movement, but from memory. You don't see the gate. You don't need to. It's enough to know that the garden remembers the sound and offers it back now and again, like a lullaby for no one in particular. A cat appears at the edge of your vision, a wisp of pale, gray fur moving between lavender stalks. It does not hurry. It does not speak. It pauses once to look your way, not as a stranger, but as someone returning to a familiar spot. And then it moves on, disappearing like fog through rosemary. The garden grows quieter still. The birds have stilled now, tucked away in hedges or beneath eaves. The dragonfly is gone. The air thickens slightly with dusk, scented now with something faintly sweet, perhaps honeysuckle, perhaps the memory of it. The shadows stretch out fully, lying flat across the stone like soft blankets. The wind dies down to almost nothing, just the occasional sigh across the fountain's basin. Even the trees seem to breathe slower now, and you, seated among it all, feel yourself becoming a part of the quiet. Your thoughts soften at the edges. The hum of the Abbey feels like it has seeped into the soil beneath your feet and into your bones. This is a place where shadows nap, where time curls in on itself and dreams root down into the earth. There is no fear here, no haste, just softness, just the hush that comes before sleep. And as the stars begin to blink into the sky, like distant candle flames in the blue, you rise once more, not out of need, but because the garden gently lets you go. The path behind you is now part of your story, and the garden, like a soft exhale, folds itself back into stillness. The garden releases you gently, like a leaf from a branch, and the path draws you once more into stone. You follow it with unhurried steps, your body still wrapped in the hush of green and gold. The scent of lavender and earth lingers on your sleeves, mingling now with the cool breath of old stone. Before long, the path leads to a narrow doorway you hadn't noticed before, partially obscured by ivy, its frame softened by time. It doesn't beckon. It simply waits. You step through, and the shadows deepen out inside. The light returns to candle gold, flickering across curved walls. The air is cooler here, not cold, just more refined, as if filtered through layers of silence. The stone walls press close, but they are not confining. They embrace. And ahead of you, winding gently into the unknown, is a spiral stair dot. It rises without haste, each step shallow and wide, carved long ago by hands that valued patience over height. The central column is thick and sturdy, darkened by time, worn to a gentle sheen where countless palms once guided the ascent. You place your hand there now, and the stone feels warm, as though it has held the memory of touch all these years. You begin to climb. The rhythm comes easily. Step, breathe. Step, breathe. Each footfall echoes faintly, then fades, as if the stair swallows sound to keep it from disturbing the upper halls. The candlelight glows softly from sconces placed at intervals, some lit, some merely waiting. Their glass cups catch the light and scatter it like water on old metal. The air is different here. It does not move quickly. It drifts. It drapes. It folds itself around your skin like velvet. Every breath feels like inhaling quiet. And with every turn of the spiral, the world below slips further away, not just physically, but emotionally. The Abbey, the garden, the lantern hall, they remain behind you, as memory, as warmth, as a gentle hum. The stair curves without strain. It does not hurry upward. It leads you like a story told by someone with all the time in the world. Dot from time to time, small windows interrupt the stone. These are not grand or symmetrical. They are simple openings, slivers of view, carved into thick walls. Through them, you see glimpses of the outside world. A glimpse of fog creeping over the distant fields. A bird perched motionless on a branch. Once, a sliver of sunset stretched across the sky in soft threads of gold and gray. These windows do not invite. They allow. They permit the world to enter gently and without demand. You pause at one window, resting your hand on its cool edge. The air wafting through it is fresh, tinged with the scent of pine and the echo of bells that no longer ring. Far below, the garden's shadow lies stretched and softened, barely a pattern now. The world seems very far away, not forgotten, just ... Slower you continue climbing. The light above is different now. It has thinned slightly, become more delicate. It pools at the center of the stairwell like milk poured into tea, gentle, pale, swirling softly in still air. Your steps make less noise now, as if even they have begun to quiet. Halfway up, there's a recess in the wall, a curved alcove holding a small wooden bench. A candle rests on a niche beside it, unlit but steady. You sit there for a while, letting the air settle around you. It smells faintly of beeswax and rosewood, and something older dust, not from neglect, but from waiting. Here. Everything waits. And yet nothing presses. You close your eyes. You could fall asleep here if you wished. The stair would hold you. The air would keep you wrapped. The candle would wait beside you, and time would drift past like a boat on slow waters. But after a while, you rise. The final stretch of the stair is narrower still, the turns tighter, like the last moments before a dream fully forms. You walk more slowly, now not from fatigue, but from reverence. The hush is deeper here, as though every breath must be cradled. And then, without fanfare, the spiral opens into light. It is not daylight. It is not candlelight. It is something in between. A glow that feels like the inside of a seashell, or the space behind closed eyelids just before sleep. It spills softly through a high, round chamber lined with arched windows. Some are stained glass, others plain, but all are veiled in the soft mist of time. You step into the room and feel the velvet air settle around you once more. The chamber is round, the walls curved like a cradle, and the floor is laid in smooth stone, with gentle spirals etched faintly into its surface echoes of the stair that led you here. A single chair waits near the window, simple, wooden, with a cushion, faded to pale gold. You sit, and the cushion welcomes you with quiet relief. You rest your hands in your lap, your eyes half-lidded, your breath soft and even. Through the windows, the world seems wrapped in gauze. Trees bend gently in the wind. Birds glide in wide arcs. The sky is a pale sweep of lavender and silver, with no horizon, only soft fading. You could stay here. You could let the stair become the whole world behind you, and the mist your only sky. This space does not ask you to wake. It does not ask you to dream. It only asks you to breathe, and you do. You sit for a long while, held in the hush. The air moves as it always has, like velvet across the surface of a thought. And time curls around you, not in minutes or hours, but in quiet spirals, like the one that brought you here. Eventually, you rise. Not because you must, but because the story moves on. The stair waits once more behind you, and though it will carry you downward this time, the velvet air will go with you, wrapped into your breath, your thoughts, your steps, and so you return not as someone who is left, but as someone who carries stillness within. The descent from the spiral stair is softer than expected. Each step downward feels less like movement and more like returning to something already known. The air follows you, a velvet hush, woven with candlelight and memory. You walk slowly, not because the path demands caution, but because the stillness invites it. At the base of the stair, a hallway branches gently to the left, curving inward like a fold in fabric. The floor is smoother here, the stone paler, as though touched less by footsteps and more by time itself. You follow the bend, where the corridor narrows and opens again, revealing a wooden door slightly ajar. You push it inward with the lightest touch. The room beyond feels almost like a breath held for too long and then released. Its quietness is thicker than silence. It's full, present, settled. The air is faintly perfumed with rosewater, lavender, and the trace of cedar long absorbed into the grain of old wood. This is the room of gentle remains. Not a crypt, not a relic chamber, nothing so final or grand. It is a room where soft things have paused their stories, and now rest in peace, not because they were forgotten, but because they were deeply remembered. The space is not large, but it is filled with details so quiet they seem to whisper. A shelf lines one wall, low and sturdy, bearing neatly folded fabrics, lace-edged linens, hand-stitched quilts, and napkins embroidered with curling initials. The threads have faded, but the care remains. On another wall, wooden drawers have been built into the stone, each one labeled in delicate handwriting. Some are slightly ajar, revealing their contents. A ribbon carefully coiled, a stack of letters tied with twine, a bundle of dried sprigs, perhaps rosemary or thyme, or something that no longer grows. The light in the room comes from 3 narrow windows set high into the wall. They allow no view, only diffuse gold, like the kind of daylight found between curtains in a room no one wants to leave. Shadows move gently across the floor, like thoughts drifting slowly towards sleep. In the far center of the room stands a table. On it, a single teacup rests upon a saucer, delicate and cracked. Beside it lies a handkerchief, its edge scalloped and stitched with ivy leaves. A small hairbrush sits nearby, its bristles worn smooth. These objects have no labels. They require none. They speak for themselves, not in words, but in presence. You move quietly through the room, drawn to the little details, a corner of lace peeking from a drawer, the edge of a book half tucked beneath a cushion. The pages inside are filled not with stories, but with lists. Ingredients for remedies, notes about planting times, observations about weather. Not grand histories, but lives gently lived. Near the windows, a chair sits, slightly turned outward, as if someone once sat watching the wall of light drift and change. A blanket is folded over one armhole, with a faint tartan pattern more nearly invisible. On the floor beneath it, a pair of slippers rest, their soles thin, their forms slightly sagged from long use. Nothing in this room has been abandoned. Everything has simply been allowed to stay. You find a small writing desk tucked into a corner, its surface cluttered, but not chaotic. There are ink stains, a featherless quill, a glass inkwell holding only a dark residue. A note lies open, its script slanted but elegant. It reads only, "For when the sky turns soft." You wonder what it meant. You don't need to know. This is a room not for understanding, but for feeling. The scent of old paper drifts upward as you open a small drawer. Inside, a square of pressed linen, a broken brooch, and a slip of parchment bearing a name too faded to read. These are not relics, they are quiet companions. They ask nothing of you. They only exist, and you, for now, exist with them. You sit for a moment in the window chair, letting the stillness fold around you. The blanket, when drawn across your lap, feels warm not from heat, but from memory. There is no dust here, only rest. Everything is clean, tended, but not in a way that erases age. The wear is cherished. The fray is honored, that a soft breeze touches the top of the window and stirs the air just enough to rustle the edges of the note on the desk. The movement is so gentle, it feels like the room sighing. And suddenly, you feel that this space has been waiting, not for you specifically, but for someone quiet enough to enter without disturbing its rhythm. You are not an intruder here. You are part of the pause. Perhaps someone once came here each morning, folding linens with a soft hum. Perhaps someone else came only on cloudy days, to sit by the window and trace the light with their fingertips. You feel their echoes not as ghosts, but as presence, as if the walls still remember their warmth. You let your gaze drift upward, where a single candle burns in a shallow sconce. The flame barely moves, its light more golden than fire, more memory than illumination. It does not chase away the shadows, it joins them. The flicker dances across the tabletop, gently touching the teacup, the note, the empty chair across from yours. The floor creaks once beneath your shifting weight. The sound is small and comforting, like the floor saying, "Yes, someone is here." And then you rise. You smooth the blanket, tuck the chair back slightly, and step toward the door. Before you leave, you glance once more at the room, not to say goodbye, but to offer a final, quiet acknowledgement. You don't need to carry anything from it. The piece of it has already wrapped itself around you, like a shawl. Outside, the corridor is waiting. The air feels different, now not because it has changed, but because you have. You carry the hush with you. You carry the quiet remembrance of things left gently behind, of lives that once unfolded softly and then folded again, like linens, into drawers of time. You walk onward, not away, and the door eases itself closed behind you with a sound like silk across stone. The corridor narrows, embracing you with its smooth, time-worn stone. Your footsteps soften with each step, as though even sound is reluctant to intrude here. Ahead, through a doorway slightly ajar, a golden flicker spills out and washes over. The floor like honey. It's not bright, not demanding, just warm, slow, and still. You step into the room and are met with a hush so complete, so deeply settled, it feels as though the very air has learned to sleep. This is not a room where time moves forward. It is a room where time lingers, turning slowly in circles like a leaf on still water. A single candle stands in the center of the space, its flame modest, its light more memory than fire. Around it, dust moves slow, suspended, drifting weightless in the glow. It dances not in spirals of excitement, but in gentle arcs and curves, each particle drifting with the patience of a thought remembered and then released. The candle rests on a low wooden table, circular and smooth, its edges worn soft by generations of fingers. Pools of wax have hardened like small white petals around the base, layered from years of slow melting. The table is carved with faint patterns, spirals, leaves, stars with rounded edges, and moons in their quiet, waning phase. You sit in the room's only chair, a high-backed seat with a velvet cushion sunken from use. As you lower yourself into it, the chair creaks not in complaint, but in welcome. Like a house sighing in recognition of an old friend, you become part of the silence. You breathe with the room, and the dust continues to move, weightless and without destination, touched only by the rhythm of your breath and the flame's occasional flutter. There are no windows here. The light is entirely born of that single flame. It is enough. The walls are smooth stone, curved in gentle arcs. They do not press in. They hold space. Every corner of the room is softened into shadow, where details blur and rest quietly. There are no sharp edges here, nothing abrupt or loud, just the fluid motion of light on stone, and the slow unfolding of air dot. You begin to notice more. A small shelf tucked behind the chair, its surface coated in a fine layer of dust. Resting upon it are three objects: a feather, slightly bent, a folded piece of linen with the initials EF, embroidered in pale thread, and a porcelain dish holding a single withered violet. These are not relics, they are remnants, not preserved with reverence, but allowed to linger gently, as if the room remembers them more clearly than any living soul might. You reach out, just slightly, toward the feather, not to take it, just to feel its presence. The air shifts with your movement, and a trail of dust responds, drifting toward the candle like a sigh. The flame bends once, and rights itself. The room absorbs the gesture without protest. You lean back again, your fingers resting in your lap. The flame flickers gently. The dust spirals, each particle tracing a story you cannot hear, but somehow understand. You watch, unblinking, as some float up toward the ceiling, where the darkness becomes velvet and others settle slowly onto the table, onto the back of your hand, onto the floor, where they disappear into shadow dot in this space. Nothing's urgent. Nothing seeks to be solved. Even the candle burns at its own pace, unhurried and content. Its light reaches only a short distance before yielding to shadow. But those few feet it touches are enough to hold a whole world. Here, the smallest moment is a universe. You look toward the floor, noticing how the light catches motes too small to name. They gather and scatter like memory appearing and fading with each breath you take. The air here is not empty. It is full of story, full of breath long released and moments long stilled. If you listen, really listen, you might almost hear it. The faint hush of forgotten footsteps, the sigh of parchment being closed, the murmur of robes brushing stone. They are not echoes. They are residue gentle remains. Like the dust, you close your eyes. Behind your lids, you still see the dance. The flame lives on in the warmth behind your eyes, casting its quiet light over the imagined silhouettes of forgotten corners. The room does not ask for your attention, but it welcomes your presence. It invites you to become still enough to feel how full silence can be. When you open your eyes again, the scene is unchanged. The candle still burns. The dust still turns. The flame has burned a bit lower, perhaps, but only just. Time has shifted, but so slowly that it cannot be measured. There is comfort in knowing that the room will remain. Long after you have gone, long after even the flame has stilled, the dust will drift in the memory of that light. The walls will remember. The breath of the air will hold the rhythm you brought with you. Eventually, you rise. The chair creaks. Once more, gently. The floor groans beneath your step, not in resistance, but in acknowledgement. The candle wavers. The dust responds. And you pause, taking one last breath of the velvet air, one last glance at the gentle orbit of light and memory. You do not say goodbye. You step back into the hallway and pull the door closed behind you with the lightest touch. It latches without sound, and for a moment you imagine the candle still burning behind it, the dust still circling, the hush of silence folding back into place. The corridor stretches ahead, lit only by the faintest glow of distant candlelight. No sharp edges interrupt the space, only curves and arches, soft and patient as breath. The air is so still, it feels like it's been holding itself in quiet. Anticipation, waiting only for your return. You take a single step. It makes no sound, not even a whisper against the old stone floor. Your foot settles as if into velvet, as if the very Abbey has learned how to cradle each movement in stillness. You take another, still nothing, only the feeling of motion, only the sense of having moved. There are no echoes here, only presence. The hall ahead curves gently, its stone walls dressed in soft shadow. On either side, high arched windows look out onto the night, but they do not invite the moonlight in. Instead, they hold the dark gently, letting it rest along. The edges of glass and stone. Your footsteps continue slow, deliberate, measured as the ticking of a forgotten clock. You feel the silence settle around your shoulders like a shawl. It's not empty silence. It's full, rich with the breath of memory. As you walk, it feels as though someone might be walking beside you, not seen, not heard, but simply known. The way you might sense a dream still lingering at the edge of your mind. Even after waking. Up ahead, the corridor turns again, and you follow without questioning. The Abbey has a way of guiding, not directing. It doesn't lead you. It simply allows you to move through it, like wind through tall grass or moonlight across a sleeping lake. Each footstep becomes its own small meditation. The hush of this hallway is different from the rooms before. It is deeper, perhaps, heavier, not with burden, but with a kind of soft gravity, an invitation to slow down even further. Your breathing aligns with the pace of your steps. Inhale, walk. Exhale, feel. There is nothing else to do. Nowhere else to be. To your left, the wall is marked with faint carvings, barely visible in the dim light. They look like vines curling slowly upward, looping over one another. Your fingertips trail along them as you pass. The stone beneath your hand is cool, but not cold. It feels smooth in places, rough in others, like time has worn some details away, but left others to remain. There's something comforting in that, in knowing that not everything endures, but some things do. Further along, you pass under a wide archway where a hanging lamp flickers above. The flame inside it is faint, enclosed in a smoky glass that softens its glow to a muted gold. Dust gathers around its frame, undisturbed. The air shifts ever so slightly as you pass, and a few specks catch the light, drifting briefly like fireflies before fading into the air once more. You pause there, beneath the lamp, and look back. The hallway behind you appears unchanged quiet, soft, endless. Your footsteps have left no trace, no print, no echo, no sign of where you've been. But the silence feels fuller now, as though it remembers. There is a kind of trust in walking without leaving a mark, a kind of peace in being part of something that holds you without holding on. You continue on. Around the next bend, the hallway narrows and the ceiling lowers slightly. You instinctively drop your shoulders, as though entering a secret. The walls close in, not to trap, but to cradle. The light here is thinner still, no longer coming from any clear source. It just is, like the soft light behind closed eyes. This part of the Abbey feels older, if such a thing is possible. The air tastes faintly of earth and parchment, like forgotten pages and roots deep in the soil. The walls seem to breathe with you. Every step is a shared rhythm. There are no paintings. Here, no candles, no benches or books. Just stone and silence, and the feeling of being gently watched, not by eyes, but by space itself. The silence is not empty. It hums, not loudly, not insistently, but like the low, slow sound of a distant lullaby being hummed into your bones. It soothes without melody. It comforts without words. You walk further, and your steps become lighter still. The floor beneath your feet feels padded, though it is only stone. The quiet thickens around you, not oppressively, but like a weighted blanket, inviting your thoughts to soften, your awareness to drift. You feel less like you are walking now, and more like you are gliding. Each motion becomes effortless. The air welcomes you, cushioning every moment. The silence around you becomes so complete that even your thoughts seem to move slower, more gently. You are no longer thinking in words, but in feelings, impressions, memories that are not quite your own. And yet they comfort you, as if this hallway remembers something you had forgotten about yourself. You begin to feel the faintest breeze. It's not coming from behind, and it's not blowing forward. It surrounds you like breath exhaled from the walls themselves. It carries with it a faint scent. Beeswax, soft wood smoke, something floral and long dried. It reminds you of twilight, of being held. Finally, you arrive at a shallow alcove. It is unmarked, barely noticeable, unless you are walking as slowly as you are. Within it stands a narrow pedestal, and atop that, a glass dome covers an object. You cannot quite identify. You don't need to know what it is. Its purpose is not explanation. It is simply to be. To exist here, in this silence, with you. You rest beside it for a while, letting your weight shift slightly to one side. Your hand brushes the edge of the stone pedestal, and it's warm, just slightly, as though someone had been there before. You, or as though the Abbey had remembered you were coming. Eventually, your feet begin to move again, not by decision, by rhythm, by quiet momentum. The path continues. So do you. The air begins to shift before you even notice it. One moment you are drifting through velvet silence, and the next, something unseen begins to tint the world around you. It's not a sound, not even a change in light. It's something gentler, a soft coolness in the breath of the corridor, a hint of color that isn't quite blue, not quite gray, but something between. This is the hour the Abbey remembers most clearly, the one that lingers long after time has moved on. The hour of blue haze. You walk slowly, your steps continuing the rhythm of the silence behind you. Ahead, the light has faded into a deep, diffused blue, as if the very stones have begun to exhale. Twilight. This isn't the blue of sky or water. It's the blue of distance, of endings softened by mist. A kind of light that belongs to moments about to fade, but never fully gone. The hallway opens into a broader gallery. There are no candles here, no flames. The illumination comes from beyond the stained glass windows lining the left wall tall, and arched reaching toward a ceiling that vanishes into shadow. The windows do not show images. Their glass is frosted and muted, veined with ancient patterns and touched by time. And behind them, the light of dusk seeps in soft, diffuse, and quiet as breath. You pause for a moment near one of the windows. The cool stone sill invites your hand to rest. You lean in slightly, gazing through the pale glass. Nothing is visible. Outside only a slow, silver blur, like fog drifting over fields long asleep. And yet, even without a view, the presence of the outside is felt. As though the Abbey is gently remembering what it once saw. The breeze that moves through this space is gentle and constant. It smells of cool grass and damp stone, of moss, perhaps, of places where dew gathers and never quite dries. The air itself seems to carry the color of the hour-faded indigo, violet gray, the blue of old wool left out beneath the star's dot. Your footsteps are quieter now, as if the stone beneath you has softened, as if the Abbey wishes not to disturb its own dreaming. The floor here is smoother, almost polished by time, and the passage of countless soft footsteps that came before yours. You follow them without haste. Dot along the right-hand wall. Small alcoves hold forgotten things. A rusted lantern, a pewter dish, a faded cloth folded once and left behind. None of it labeled. None of it explained. And yet, all of it feels known. Familiar. As if you've seen them once before. In a dream you half remember when you wake. You sit for a while, on a narrow bench tucked beneath a window. The cushion has faded to near gray, but still holds its shape. It welcomes your weight, like it was expecting you. You close your eyes for a moment, and in the hush, you feel it, the slow turning of the world outside, the fading of daylight into memory. This hour has no urgency. It is neither day nor night. It is the breath between. A time for remembering, without needing to recall. A time when shadows no longer reach outward, but begin to return to themselves, curling into corners, gathering like soft animals before sleep. A single sound reaches you, soft and distant. Not music, not words. Perhaps the first call of a nightbird in the trees beyond the Abbey. It is not loud. It does not break the silence. It joins it, like one more thread woven into an already perfect fabric. The Abbey feels older in this light. Not older in years, but older in feeling. Its walls seem to lean inward, not from weight, but from memory, as though they remember more than they can ever say. You imagine this hour repeating itself, every day for centuries. The same blue hush wrapping itself around stone and thought and breath. You rise from the bench and continue walking. The gallery narrows again, gently. The ceiling lowers. The color deepens. You begin to feel as though you are walking through the very idea of twilight, through the moment before the candle is lit, through the silence just before sleep, through the soft space where everything slows. A breeze passes, brushing your sleeve, lifting a strand of your hair. It carries no chill, only softness. It does not push, it glides. It circles once and then vanishes, as though it came just to acknowledge you. You pass another alcove. This one holds a bundle of dried flowers tied with a ribbon. The petals are nearly colorless now, but their shape is intact, preserved not in defiance of time, but in peaceful surrender to it. A note lies beneath them, the ink long faded. You do not try to read it. You simply pause and feel the quiet it left behind. Dot further along, the blue haze thickens slightly. It is not fog, but a kind of dimness that feels alive. Your own shape begins to blend into the corridor's softness. Your edges blur. Your presence becomes something less defined, more dreamlike. Dot, and then ahead, the hall opens once more. A round chamber, with windows in every direction, stands waiting. The ceiling arches high above, vanishing into shadow, while the floor beneath Your feet glows faintly in reflection of the light filtering in. This is where the blue gathers, where it settles into itself, where the day fully surrenders to night, without sorrow, without resistance. In the center of the room, a low stone basin holds still water. It reflects the windows, the shadows, the hush. Your own face appears only faintly softened by the light, smudged by the silence. You gaze into it for a moment, not to find yourself, but to feel your presence dissolving into the stillness. You sit again, this time on the edge of the basin. You watch the light dim. You watch the haze settle. And you feel the Abbey draw breath. Slow and deep. This is the hour when everything becomes gentle. Even thought, even memory, even you. When you rise, the hush follows. The blue lingers in your steps. You leave the chamber, not as someone who has passed through a place, but as someone who has been slowly woven into its dreaming. The corridor awaits. The shadows have grown longer. The light is nearly gone, but your path continues. And the haze walks with you. The hush of blue haze still lingers in your breath as you move forward, deeper into the Abbey's quiet heart. With each step, you feel the building's memory settle gently around you, not pressing, not clinging, just present. The kind of memory that doesn't require you to recall, only to be still enough to feel. The hallway begins to change. The stone underfoot becomes warmer, smoother, as though softened by centuries of slow, steady footsteps. The walls here curve inward just slightly, creating the feeling of being welcomed rather than enclosed. You do not rush. The Abbey would not want you to. You pass through another archway, simple and low, and beyond it, the corridor begins to split left and right, but also forward, each path leading to a different room, a different silence. The air carries the faint scent of lavender and aged linen. Nothing strong, just traces. Whispers of softness left behind by lives long lived and kindly forgotten. You choose the path ahead, where the stone softens into worn wooden flooring. The change in texture is subtle, but grounding. Your footsteps press gently into the grain, absorbed by layers of time and polish. The hallway here widens into a circular room, small but full of presence. It feels as though it has been waiting. The first thing you notice is the armchair, pale and wide, its cushions sunken into a perfect shape. Beside it, a wool blanket folded. Neatly, its fringe slightly frayed, rests on a low bench. And next to that, a teacup, empty but recently placed, as though someone had only just risen, leaving the space still warm. You do not sit yet. Instead, you take in the details, the way the candlelight falls across the pale rug, the faint lines. In the stone wall behind the chair, where a tapestry once hung, long removed. On the far wall, a small wooden chest stands closed, not locked, just quietly waiting, like everything else. There's a gentle pull here, not from the objects themselves, but from the air, the feeling that you've been here before. Maybe not in this life, but somewhere, in a dream, in a breath, in the space between waking and sleep. The room feels like it knows you, not as someone special, but as someone familiar. And then you do sit. The chair welcomes you like a memory. Its cushions adjust around you, not resisting, not needing anything more than your presence. You pull the blanket over your knees and feel the faintest warmth still in its folds. It smells of old lavender and something like wood smoke. Not the sharp scent of fire, but the softness of embers long cooled. You close your eyes. The room does not change, but your sense of it deepens. You feel the quiet in your bones. You sense the walls leaning in, not to listen, but to hold. The kind of silence that asks for nothing and offers everything. When you open your eyes again, your gaze drifts to the small chest. You do not move toward it. You don't need to. Just its presence is enough. It reminds you that stories have lived here. that this room has held whispers, readings by candlelight, soft laughter between lines of poetry. None of it needs to be spoken now. The room remembers it for you. Across from the chair, a narrow window lets in the faintest starlight. No glass remains in the frame, only the open stone and the cool breath of night drifting in. You lean slightly, letting your fingertips brush the stone sill. It is smooth, worn soft by decades of hands resting here before you. You look out and see only the outline of trees, their tops barely illuminated by the pale stars above. A breeze moves through, touching your cheek, stirring the edge of the blanket. It does not chill. It carries something like a lullaby, an invisible softness that presses gently against your skin and then slips away. You return to the chair, your breath now as slow as the dust floating in the candle's glow. The flame beside you flickers, but does not falter. Its light is enough. Its presence is quiet. This room, like all the others, has no name, but you feel it holding yours. Not the one you speak aloud, but the one that lives in your silence, the self that appears only when everything else has gone still. You remain here for a while. There is no hurry. The Abbey's patience is endless. Time stretches, folds, breathes with you. The rug beneath your feet holds the warmth of generations. The walls hum with the comfort of long-kept quiet, and slowly, softly, you begin to rise. Not because the moment has ended, but because you know the way forward now. The room has done its part. It has reminded you of something gentle. That stillness can remember you. That quiet is not empty. That softness, real softness, can hold memory better than stone. You fold the blanket again, though the chair does not ask for it. You leave the teacup untouched, and you step into the hallway once more, where the wood becomes stone again, and the shadows wait with their calm, familiar grace. But now the Abbey feels warmer. The doors ahead seem to open slightly, as if nudged by breath, as if recognizing your presence with quiet affection. These are rooms that know you, even if you've never walked through them before. These are rooms that remember kindness, that hold the trace of every footstep, every silence, every breath. You pass by another open room, this one empty, save for a single folded quilt on the windowsill. The candle in the corner has burned low, wax pooling like a small pond beneath it. And yet the light continues, the hush continues, and you continue. One more hallway, one more curve. The flicker of light ahead tells you that you are nearly at the place where the path begins to turn homeward. But there is no rush. You walk slowly. Each step is part of a conversation between you and the quiet, between memory and breath, between rooms that do not speak, but somehow still know. And as you move through the spaces that hold the gentle echoes of lives long gone, the Abbey does not feel lonely. You turn the corner slowly, and in the hush that follows, the flicker of golden light greets you like an old friend. It spills out from a long, familiar corridor, the very one you passed through once before, but now it feels different. Not new, not forgotten, just dot warmer, as if your presence has softened the stone, or perhaps the Abbey has begun to recognize your rhythm. This is the candle hall. Its glow is unmistakable lanterns hung in arched alcoves line the hallway. Their flames, steady, gentle, each one held within a globe of glass, worn soft by age. Their light is not bright but full, like the quiet warmth of memory. You step forward, and the amber light follows your movement, catching the folds of your clothing, glinting across the smooth surface of the floor. The hall stretches far, but not overwhelmingly so. It is the kind of long that invites slow walking, not because of distance, but because of the way time seems to unwind inside it. One foot in front of the other. No rush. No destination. Just a return. A retracing. A remembering dot as you begin walking. Your footsteps settle into a steady rhythm barely. Audible, barely felt. The stone beneath you is cool and smooth, worn by generations of souls walking in silence. Every step seems to echo in light, not in sound. The candles flicker in response to your passage, each flame swaying gently, as if bowing in acknowledgement. You pass the first lantern, and then another. Between each, the shadows fall thick and soft, like velvet. You move through them slowly, brushing past the invisible seams where light and dark meet and part again. There is a quiet pulse here, not of sound or heartbeat, but of time remembering itself. You feel it in the sway of the flames, in the dust that turns gently in the warmth, in the way your own breath aligns with the silence. The Abbey is not just holding you, it is walking with you, step by step, candle by candle. On the left wall, a series of niches hold small relics, simple things. A string of wooden beads, a smooth stone etched with an unreadable symbol, a key, with no lock in sight. You pause before one of them, feeling no urge to take or touch, just to notice, just to let your presence mingle with the stillness they carry. To your right, tall windows stretch toward the dark sky, their panes clouded with age. The night beyond is still. Stars drift behind a thin veil of mist, and somewhere, far in the distance, an owl releases a soft, measured call. The sound is faint, fragile. It floats through the air like a breath that has traveled too far to be urgent. You continue on. The hall remains unchanged, yet the further you walk, the more it feels familiar, not as though you've walked it earlier tonight, but as if it has always existed inside you, waiting for this moment to surface. The lanterns mark your progress, not as milestones, but as guardians, each one holding a small, flickering promise. You are almost home. At the midpoint of the hall, the air thickens slightly, not with weight, but with warmth. You pause again, this time beneath a particularly low-hanging lamp. Its flame burns steadier than the rest, almost completely still. Beneath it, a small stone bench has been carved into the wall. You sit. The moment holds you gently. Around you, the air glows golden, and the silence deepens, not into absence, but into presence. You close your eyes. Behind your lids, the candlelight dances soft patterns, playing along the inside of your thoughts. You feel the passage of time not as a line, but as a spiral, turning inward and inward again, returning you not to where you began, but to who you are in this precise and peaceful moment. You breathe in slowly. The air smells of beeswax and old stone. You breathe out, and the flame above you dips once, like a nod. When you rise, you do so with no reluctance. The journey is not over, but the path is narrowed into something simple, something clear. You take a few steps more, and the last arc of the hallway comes into view. The final lantern burns lower than the others. Its light is softest, almost, like the last ember before sleep takes over. And beyond it, you see it, the faint outline of the great oak door. You walk toward it slowly. Every candle you've passed seems to remain with you, not in vision, but in warmth. You carry their glow. Now, not as light to guide you, but as memory to hold you. The closer you come to the door, the more you feel the weight of silence gather around you. Not heavy, but full. Full of what has been seen. Full of what has passed quietly, without words. You reach the threshold. The door stands tall. It's wood, darkened by time, its surface carved with patterns faded and smooth. You rest your hand upon it, feeling not resistance, but calm. The wood is warm just slightly, enough to let you know it remembers your touch from the very first time. You turn slowly to look back down the candle hall. All the flames you've passed are still burning, still swaying gently in the hush. They do not beckon. They do not resist. They simply remain. And so, for one last moment, you remain with them. Standing there, in the golden hush of candlelight, you realize something simple and kind. Nothing is rushing you. The Abbey will not forget. The silence will not close behind you. And if you ever return, the light will be here, waiting, just as steady, just as soft. You place your hand upon the door, and it yields. A small sound, barely a whisper, as the wood shifts. Not creaking, not groaning, just a breath of welcome, or perhaps a gentle farewell. The oak door waits, half open and bathed in the final hush of golden light. It does not call you forward, nor does it bid you linger. It simply exists as it has for centuries, marking the boundary between the world you know and the world that only appears in silence. You stand before it, your breath slow and even, the candlelight still clinging to your skin, like warmth remembered from a long-lost dream. Your fingers find the wood, now cool to the touch. The grain is deep and soft, smoothed by time, worn by the passage of hands that came before you, pilgrims of quiet, travelers in thought. As you press your palm against it, the door responds with a stillness that feels like memory. Not something left behind, but something softly kept. Behind you, the candle hall stretches like a golden spine through the Abbey's quiet body. The lanterns sway slightly, not from wind, but from the breath of the building itself, slow, steady, eternal. You have walked its length, felt its silence, gathered its glow. And now the last flame bows gently to your shadow. You cross the threshold. The door begins to close, not abruptly, not with sound, but with grace. A subtle motion, like the final page of a cherished book folding shut. The kind of close that means not ending, but rest. You do not look back, because the light is no longer behind you. It is within you now. The air outside has cooled, but not sharply. It carries with it the scent of moss, of earth just damp enough to remember rain. The trees whisper overhead in tones too soft to translate, and above them, the sky has melted into a blue so deep it feels like velvet draped over the world. Your feet find a familiar path, though you have never truly walked it. It winds gently away from the Abbey, flanked by low stone walls and trailing vines. Each step is softened by damp leaves and the hush of night insects tuning down their song. No light marks the way, and yet your footing is sure. The Abbey has left its rhythm in your body. You glance once toward the tall shadow behind you, where the Abbey rests like a dream that has returned to its slumber. No windows shine. No voice speaks, but it does not feel empty. It feels deeply asleep, wrapped in candle smoke and memory, still breathing. The path curves around a bend where ivy overtakes the stone. Here you pause. Not because you are lost, no. You are more found now than ever, but because the quiet is complete. Even your breath seems to soften, slipping into the folds of the mist like a note tucked into a drawer. There is nowhere to be. There's only this moment. And in this moment, the Abbey becomes part of you. Not just the walls and lanterns, not only the hush of forgotten rooms, but the feeling of being remembered without being spoken to, of being seen without being watched. The Abbey never asked anything of you. It simply allowed you to be still. And to feel that stillness held, you walk again, slower now. Each step a farewell, though it doesn't feel like leaving. The memories do not remain behind stone doors. They walk beside you, gentle, shapeless, warm. You pass a crooked tree whose bark glows silver in the moonlight. It leans toward you slightly, as though bowing to the rhythm you now carry. There is a sense that the world has not changed, and yet everything has softened. The sky darkens further. Stars blink slowly into view. A thin veil of mist gathers around. Your ankles swirling without sound, like a cloak that wraps itself gently without asking. The wind hums against your skin, not cold, but close. You begin to forget where your breath ends and the world begins. You stop once more, where the path narrows between two ancient stones, half buried, half forgotten. Their surfaces are covered in moss and tiny glowing lichens that pulse faintly. In the dark, you reach out and rest your fingers upon one. It hums beneath your skin, not with sound, but with presence, as if the Abbey has sent one last whisper to follow you into the night. The candle flickers once, then twice, before steadying itself in the hush of night. Outside, the rain has grown slower, like a lullaby whispered across the stones. You pass once more through the hall of lanterns, the footsteps now softer than ever, and reach the great oak door. It does not creak, does not resist, only closes gently behind you, like a book read too many times, its cover warm with memory. The Abbey remains where it always was, half in the world, half in a dream, waiting quietly for your next visit. Path before you fades into mist. There is no need to walk any further. You've already arrived in the stillness you were meant to find. And now, dear listener, let your breath grow slow and still. Let the silence of stone and the hush of candlelight guide you to rest. There is nothing more to be done now. No voices left to answer, no moments waiting to unfold. Only the rhythm of your quiet breath, the gentle echo of footsteps fading into stillness, and the tender warmth of a distant flame that continues to glow deep within. Let the hush surround you like soft velvet, steady and kind. Let the night deepen around you. Let yourself drift without direction, without time, into a place where even the silence sleeps. Sleep gently. And until next time, may your dreams be soft as footsteps in the Abbey's hall. Good night.